Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So, as private school leaders, we know that summer is a busy time, and we have so much to do to get ready for the next school year. Have to get the report cards out and the achievement test scores out to the parents and order curriculum, interview and hire teachers, finish the master schedule, supervise the summer cleaning projects or renovations or construction. It's a really, really long list of things that have to take place during the summer. And it's easy to get lost in that long list. And for me, I have pretty much all of those same things on my to-do list for the summer. But I wanted to tell you about my favorite week of the year, and that's the third week of June. And the reason that the third week of June is my favorite week of the year is because during that week, my daughters and I go to Ocean, and my wife, of course, my daughters and my wife, my family, we go to Ocean City, New Jersey for a week. And we've been going there since the late 90s for our family vacation. And I've watched my three daughters grow up on those beaches and on that boardwalk. And Ocean City, New Jersey, if you're not familiar, is pretty unique in that it is one of the last dry towns in America. There's no alcohol sold in Ocean City. And the vibe is pretty much either old people or families with little kids and really not anything in between. People that want to party, they go someplace else. And my favorite place is to be sitting on the beach with my family. And my second favorite place is to be on the boardwalk, sitting at the counter of a place called Manko and Manko's Pizza, just looking at the ocean and eating a piece of what I think is the best pizza on earth. And hopefully that evoked some memories for you or some plans for you as far as what you're going to do this summer, in addition to that long list that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Well, if you've listened for any length of time, you know that I love clarity and I love being intentional. And that's why on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we are going to discuss the 5 things that you should definitely do this summer. And those 5 things are: number 1, rest; number 2, play; number 3, connect; number 4, plan; and number 5, grow. But before we get into today's topic, I just wanted to remind you that I would love to work with you one-on-one. And if you've gotten any value from the podcast, I do one-on-one coaching on Zoom. And I would love to take my experience and help you to go from wherever you are and help you transform into what you want to be. So maybe you're winding up the school year feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and kind of burnt out. New strategies and new behaviors and new skills can make next year's school year much different. You also might be a rising leader, a new leader, first-time leader. You also might be someone that is a current leader, but you're going to be going to a new school this fall. And so all of those things that I just mentioned, I've experienced all of them, and I can help you to be ready and to get off to a great start. And so if that intrigues you, if I'm describing you, if you want to learn more, then head over to theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching to learn more about how I can work with you one-on-one, and that's theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. And the last few episodes, I've been mentioning a new resource that I've created just for you, a way of saying thank you for listening to the podcast. And this is a 9-page PDF called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. And verbal judo is something that Dr. George Thompson has taught to over 200,000 law enforcement officers all over the United States. And verbal judo is specifically, it focuses on using words effectively to de-escalate conflict, resolve disputes, and achieve positive outcomes in high-pressure situations. Well, that sounds like it just described our job, and specifically it sounds like it described our interactions with some of our parents. So what I've done is taken several important strategies from the book Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion, and taken those strategies and applied them to your life as a private school leader. So you can grab this guide at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. That's theprivateschoolleader.com/judo for the PDF, how to use verbal judo to have better conversations with the parents at your school. So just a way of me saying thank you and trying to better equip you as you work with the families at your school. And then lastly, before we begin the topic, is just one more request, and that is I'd love it if you would share the link of the podcast with another school leader in your life or an aspiring leader at your school. We're now in 55 countries, from Austria to Zambia. We just added Cayman Islands a couple weeks ago and Iraq the week before that. So the way that this happens is that, we're spreading the word by sharing the link, and then also people that write reviews and rate the podcast wherever you listen to it. That helps the algorithm push out this content as a suggested podcast. And so I'd love to get the word out, get these resources and this content out to private school leaders all over the world. All right. So at the top of the episode, I said that today we're going to talk about the 5 things that you should definitely do this summer. Number 1, rest. Number 2, play. Number 3, connect. Number 4, plan. And number 5, grow. And I want to acknowledge that every private school leader has a different summer schedule, and no 2 schedules are the same. You might have regular hours on campus. They might be partial days. They might be full days. It might be Monday through Thursday. The number of weeks of vacation that you get may vary. You may have your campus closed the week of the 4th of July, and it's kind of a mandatory time to take vacation. You may have the option of working remote on some of those days. I know that how many teachers you have to hire this summer influences how much you're on campus as well. So there's no one size fits all for how you will spend your summer. And I hope that you get the most out of it and still do that long list of things that I mentioned before. But I mentioned that we're all about being intentional on this podcast, and so we're going to get intentional about these 5 things. Okay. So number 1 is to rest. And I really believe strongly that most of us as private school leaders don't really rest during the school year, because we go from one crisis to the next, and we just put out fires and, the tyranny of the urgent, and then we're on to the next thing. So you have to ask yourself the question, well, what is real rest? And that's to actually just shut it down and to not check your email, and to just have that ability to get some sleep, to read a book, to watch a TV show that's maybe something you and your partner or spouse have been thinking about watching. And I wanted to tell you about a coaching client that I had. And last summer, I was working with him, and he told me that he had never put an away message on his email. And he was going for 2 weeks to the East Coast to visit with his wife's family, to stay with her family. And so he was somewhat addicted to constantly checking email. And I was trying to convince him that, putting an away message, that if there was something that was really important, that someone from the school would text him or call him. And so I talked him into it. He put an away message on, and he went to his wife's family, their spot in Rhode Island for 2 weeks, and he didn't check email. And so I had a session with him. He got back on a Monday. I had a session with him on a Tuesday, and I asked him, how it went. And I said, how many of those emails were things that you needed to deal with in real time? And he said 0. And I said, were there any issues that came up that needed to be dealt with in real time? And he said, yes, there was one. It was kind of an unexpected email from a family that said they were leaving the school, going to another school. And so it was either his head of school or the board, a board member had texted him, and he reached out to that family. So my point in telling you that story is not to say that, every one of you have that same ability to never check email. When you're on your, hopefully you have the privilege and luxury of going on a family vacation, or at least having some time off. We're not going to get real rest if we're dipping in and out of work constantly. And I'll say again that I realize that the number of staff that you need to hire does impact this, but if at all possible, try in the summertime, because it's not possible during the school year as much. Try to have a couple different buckets and just have that bucket that's school. And as tempting as it is, as much as we are addicted to checking our email inbox, to just realize that if there's something that rises to the level of it's so important that it needs to be dealt with on a summer day, that there's another way for someone to get that information to you through text or through a phone call. And so I think one other thing that I want to mention about rest is that I believe in American culture, that the hustle culture has equated rest with laziness. And that rest is kind of like a bad word because it's all about the grind, and it's all about the hustle and, rise and grind and just this entrepreneur, motivational speaker kind of talk that's out there that makes us think that unless we're constantly working, that we're lazy. And that is not a recipe for a long and happy, fulfilling career as a private school leader. And if you want to have that, if you want to do this for a long time and feel joy and feel fulfillment, and to have work-life balance with your loved ones, then you have to learn how to rest. And so I've talked before about how you can schedule your good intentions. You're going to hear that more than once on this episode. So just lean into that. Rest during the summertime, you've got to schedule it. And I know that sounds weird, but good intentions, if they're not on your schedule, they don't happen, and they stay just exactly that. They stay good intentions. And so think about when, and think about what you're going to do, and doing a whole lot of nothing for a short period of time. Sometimes it's hard to transition into that. I know it's hard for me when I start vacation, but as best we can, because we really don't have that opportunity to rest during the school year, but as best we can, we're going to try to rest this summer. All right, number two on the list of things that we are going to, 5 things that you should definitely do this summer. Number 2 on our list is play. And so we all go a little stir crazy because our schedules during the school year are just go, go, go. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of the way I am. If I'm off for a while, like I just start to get a little bit stir crazy and feel like I need something to do. And I think that that's where play comes in. And I want you to really think about this, because I'm going to give you 2 sentences and you're going to fill in the blank. And if you don't have an immediate answer, then I want you to think about it. But when it comes to you as a human being, as a person, I want you to finish this sentence. I really wish that I had more time to blank. I really wish that I had more time to blank. And the second one is, I can't remember the last time that I blank. So let me give you some suggestions, and these are taken from my coaching clients that just in the past year, things that I've heard them do in the way of play that were intentional things that they started because they had not been doing them, but they were something that they loved. And so one of the clients is an artist, and so he got the easel out and the paints out, and so painting swimming, gardening, baking, golf, biking, pickleball, crochet, hiking, camping. One client, it was just baked a loaf of homemade bread in the oven. It was like a highlight. And so let me go back to those questions now that I've given you a few suggestions. I really wish that I had more time to blank. I can't remember the last time that I blank. What do you love to do? What do you have fun doing? What do you get joy from doing? What do you never have time to do during the school year? What is that thing that you could do if you scheduled it? And listen, before I go on to number 3, I have another thing highlighted here in bold with green highlight, and it says schedule your good intentions. Even with the summertime, the thing that you do, let's say it's biking, and there's a bike trail near your house, and you enjoy biking with, a couple members of your family, and unless you schedule it, unless you make sure that the tires are inflated because you haven't had the bike out in a while, unless you plan it and schedule it into your calendar, it's not going to happen. It's just going to stay good intentions. But I'm telling you, if you do the thing that brings you joy and you start to do it, then it's going to be something that you're going to find that you're going to figure out a way to make time for it. Well, during the school year, that's pretty hard to start, but it's a little easier to start and get back to that passion, that hobby, that thing that you love. A little easier to do that, to get back to it during the summertime. So number 2 is play. All right, number 3 is to connect. And let's face it, I'm going to speak for myself. This might be true for many of you that are listening, but I don't think our loved ones often get the best version of us during the school year. And my daughters, when they lived at home, they used to say that they get dumb dad in the evening. That's an exact quote, because they said that I used up all my good decision making and used up all my brains and my smarts during the day, and then they would get dumb dad at home. Summer can be a time to reconnect emotionally, to improve relationships, to repair relationships. And I would encourage you to think about 2 circles, your inner circle and then the next ring of that circle. So for me, my inner circle would be my wife and my 3 daughters. And then my next circle out would be my wife's family, like my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my nephews who are grown now, and hanging out with them. Or it would be a couple of friends, maybe a friend from church, or I'm still friends with a gentleman that retired from our school a few years back. And so think about yourself. Think about connecting emotionally, relationally during the summer. And how does that work? Well, spending time and communicating. But let's start with the who. And the who would be to start with your inner circle. Who's in your inner circle? And then the next ring of that circle. And that's about as far as it's probably going to get. But just to be very intentional about it. And so that's the who. And let's talk about the how. I am a strong believer that device-free conversations are more and more rare, but they're more and more important to have. And anytime that you can have a conversation, whether it's at the dinner table or sitting on the back deck or going for a walk, when it's device-free, we've become so distracted by the electronic leash of our smartphone, and there's so much good that comes from it, but there's so much distraction that comes from it as well. And so the how, I just really think device-free time, whether it's playing or, depending on the age of your kids. I know that this might look differently. And speaking of that, you don't have to spend a lot of money to connect emotionally. I remember what it was like to have no money for a long time, living on a private school leader's salary with 3 young kids, all 2 years apart, and trying to, buy clothes and buy food and keep the cars running and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be expensive. it can be, going to the park. It can be, at that season in our life, we were looking for everything that was free, but the kids, they want us to give them attention. They want us to spend time with them and focus on them and listen to them and talk to them. And that's true for our significant other, our spouse, our partner as well. And then a couple of other just unsolicited opinions that I will give is that I think that if we can apply the same level of active listening to a loved one that we would for a parent in my office, it's going to make a big difference. So that one might sting a little, so I'll just say it one more time. If I can apply the same level of active listening to my loved ones that I would for a parent in my office, I think it can be a game changer. And then the last thing under how, especially if you have teenagers and teenagers, being much more interested in their phone and their friends and things like that, you take an interest in what they're interested in. And so, I know when my daughters were tweens and teens, it's like if it mattered to them, it mattered to me. And I might not have always done a great job with that, but I tried really hard. And so it's a matter of like taking an interest in stuff that you might not be interested in and doing those things so that you can have that time with them. So number 3 is we're going to connect. We're going to focus on those relationships, the inner circle, the next ring of the circle, try to have device-free conversations and to try to apply the same level of active listening that we would give to a parent, because our loved ones deserve more respect than that parent does in our office. So we just want to try to lean into that. And then also, one more time, schedule your good intentions. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? And the what might just be going for a walk or sitting in the backyard, or, if you have a little fire pit or whatever it is that you have where you live, that is an opportunity with the summertime weather to just connect. And what works best for you, but it's the intention behind it and the just the follow through. And I know sometimes that's hard, but it's probably the most essential thing on this list is to connect with our loved ones. All right, number 4 is to plan. So of course I can hear what you're thinking. You're saying, well, of course I'm going to plan. Like that's what I do during the summer. But I don't mean plan for the school year that starts this fall. Okay, you're going to do that anyways. And all the things I mentioned before about report cards and curriculum and hiring teachers and making sure the building gets cleaned and repaired and is ready for the first day of school and updating handbooks and all that other stuff that happens in the summer. I'm encouraging you to schedule some time to think about the future of your school, and specifically things that will happen more than 1 year in the future. So this summer, to set aside some time, and I'm going to give you a suggestion on like how to do this, and that is to grab a piece of paper or a notebook is even better, and just start writing, okay? And the writing prompt is describe your school in 5 years, and specifically describe the preferred future of your school. And I love that phrase, preferred future. So you envision what you would want your school to be like in 5 years. And then you start making some categories. Again, this is all just scratched written quickly on a piece of paper. And the categories could be culture, enrollment. Again, what do you want your school to look like in 5 years? Teachers, as far as like their performance, their training, level of training, teacher morale, students, profile of a graduate, finances, facilities, anything that comes to mind about your school is to just make a category. And then you're doing this thought exercise and you're just going to start describing it in as much detail as possible. So specifically, like picking facilities, what do you want your campus to look like? Are you bursting at the seams? Do you have some classrooms that could be turned into X, Y, or Z? Are you struggling because the gymnasium the roof is always leaking and it seems like games are getting canceled? Like, that's facilities. Culture. What do you want this culture at your school to be like in 5 years? Could you describe what the feeling is in the hallways and in the lunchroom and in the faculty lounge, the teacher workroom? And so you're jotting all this down, and then you've got these categories, you've got these descriptions, and now you're going to take those categories and then just start a new piece of paper for each one. Just write facilities at the top and write students at the top and teachers at the top and culture at the top. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to start to reverse engineer how you would get there. And so, let's pick enrollment. Well, if I want enrollment to be X in 5 years, what do I have to do this year, next year, 3 years from now? If I want our facilities to be X in 5 years, what do I have to do this year, next year, 3 years from now? If I want our school culture to be X in 5 years, what do I have to do this year, next year, in 3 years? And I'm not saying that all of this would happen at once, like this maybe isn't one sitting of planning, but to literally put this into your schedule sometime this summer, where you're going to take a couple of hours, a few hours, maybe spread out over the course of a couple of weeks, where you're looking into the future and you are asking yourself this question: this summer, which school year are you planning for? This summer, which school year am I planning for? So the answer most of the time is going to be this one, the one that starts in August. And that's a given, has to be. So much stuff to do, okay? But this summer, which school year are you planning for? Are we also going to spend some time this summer planning for the school year that is 5 years from this August? Because if we don't, and most of us don't, and we spend all of our time planning on how to get ready for this school year and then get through this school year, and then we survive and we hang on for that ride that's like a roller coaster with no brakes, and we get through the school year, but if we don't have a vision and if we don't have a plan, it's never going to become a reality. And your notebook with those sections can be like a GPS, can be like a roadmap. And so I just strongly encourage you to schedule your good intentions, to plan the preferred future of your school, and to do this thought exercise. And I'll paste that, what I just described, I'll paste that in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 84. All right. And then number 5 on our list of 5 things that we're going to definitely do this summer is to grow yourself as a leader, to grow. So that could look a bunch of different ways. It could be to read a leadership book. I know that on my website, theprivateschoolleader.com/top 10, I list the top 10 leadership books, the top 10 productivity books, in my opinion. I also list the top 10 TED Talks that I think private school leaders could watch. So that's a place to start, is reading a book, listening to this podcast, watching some TED Talks, taking some notes, trying to apply some strategies. But if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to take it a step further, there's actually 2 things that I offer that you could do to grow this summer if you wanted to take that step. And the first one is called Thrive Academy. And Thrive Academy is an online course with digital lessons, 39 lessons, 9 hours of video content. It's broken down into 7 modules, and we talk about aligning your practice with your values, how to hijack the tyranny of the urgent, how to find real work-life blend with boundaries, how to improve relationships, how to have energy every day. You're improving your leadership. So there's a lot there, but it's 9 hours of video content. It's an 86-page workbook with guided notes and reflection questions and a call to action after every lesson, and live office hours on Zoom for the first 6 weeks. And so I think Thrive Academy can be a real game changer for you this summer to get you into the place where you need to be to have an amazing school year. And you can check that out at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. Or you could take the other step of the thing that I mentioned at the top of the episode, which is coaching. And you may have considered leadership coaching before. I would love to work with you one-on-one. If you're a rising leader, if you're a leader that's feeling burnout, if you're going to starting out at a new school, whatever the case might be, you can check out more at theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. There's a lot of information there for you, as well as testimonials from school leaders all over the world that I've been working with, and theprivateschoolleader.com/coaching. And so the most important thing, though, is to grow. And whatever that looks like for you, whatever you want to take on, and summer is a great time to grow yourself as a leader, to put yourself in the best possible position to succeed, and not only to succeed, but to thrive. And so our big takeaways from today's episode, the 5 things that you should definitely do this summer. Number 1, rest. Number 2, play. Number 3, connect. Number 4, plan. And number 5, grow. And I usually give a call to action, and I usually only give 1 call to action, but I'm actually going to give you 5. I would like for you to take each one of these 5 things, rest, play, connect, plan, and grow, and look at your calendar for the summer and schedule time into your calendar for each of those things. Maybe you only schedule like a couple of hours for each of them, but I think the practice of actually putting it into your calendar and then actually doing the thing is going to be possibly be a game changer for you to get you into the habit of scheduling your good intentions and taking better care of yourself. And summer is a great time to start some new habits. All right, let's wrap it up. Again, just a quick reminder about the new resource that I've created for you called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. And that's based on the book by Thompson and Jenkins, Verbal Judo and the Art of Persuasion. And you can get that for free over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. And I'd love to hear from you. My email is mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Let me know what you're doing this summer. Let me know one of the things that you've decided that you're going to do. Also, you can make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. I mentioned the show notes are at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 84 for today's episode. And wherever you listen, if you could please review and rate the podcast, I'd really appreciate that. I'm on social at Instagram, at the Private School Leader, and on Twitter at the PS Leader. And as always, if you get any value from this episode or from this podcast in general, just please share the link with a school leader or an aspiring leader in your life. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I appreciate you so much. If you're listening to this in real time, your school year is winding down and summer is on the horizon. And I hope that you are able to lean into these 5 things. And thank you for taking some precious time out of your week at such a busy time of year. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.